Okay, welcome to Graveyard Tours. I am at the Calvert Mansion in Riverdale, Maryland. I actually was born not too far from here. And this place has a history, and we're also going to see the graveyard of the Calverts, which many people, I don't think anybody has visited in many long time. So this mansion is a Georgian style mansion built between 1801 and 1807. They really don't know exactly when. It's historic. So it's also known as the Baltimore House. It's on, I'm reading my notes here, folks. So 4811 Riverdale Road, Riverdale Park, Maryland. Open to the public with museum. Once a manor house, it was once a manor house with 739 acres and also a slave plantation that came with it. So it was built by a Belgian immigrant, Henry Joseph Steer, and finished by his daughter and her husband. They established the Maryland Agricultural College, now the University of Maryland. So part of that 739 acres went to the university, what is now known as the University of Maryland. I'm gonna see if they're gonna let me film in here. Yeah, so it's locked. I got here late. But they wouldn't let, most places won't not let you film anyway. But we're gonna walk around this mansion really quick, and we're going to, so the daughter, I believe, when the British invaded Bladensburg, Maryland, which was just 2 miles from here. So let me show you this too. The daughter, I think they were British sympathizers. So I'm going to take pictures of all of the signs here, so you can read at your leisure. But there is a lot of history here, folks. A lot of history. They even have like a little garden area. Now the funny thing is, I actually grew up in Riverdale, born and raised in Riverdale, and I used to come here as a teenager, and we'd hang out. You know, the teenagers would come in, and before, I mean, they didn't really turn this into a historic place or take care of it as well until, I don't know, maybe when I was an adult. I mean, they did take care of the inside, okay? But they, you know, I mean, I don't know. I was I guess, I don't know, a teenager until I finally went into the mansion, you know? It was weird, but yeah, I wasn't into history or anything at the time. I was into making friends and trying to get girlfriends. Yeah, that's what I was into. But anyway, so here is the mansion. Here is, let me show you this. The sun is very bright, so I can't even see where I'm walking right now until I get out of the sun. Finally, now I can see. So forgive me for my photography here. All right, brought to Maryland in 1634 by the first colonists on the ship's Ark and Dove. This demi-silvern was presented to Charles Benedict Calvert of Riverdale in 1845. Preservation and restorations was funded by the Maryland Heritage Committee of Prince George's County in 1984 to honor the 350th anniversary of the state of Maryland. Oh, is that 350? Yes, 350th. Okay, so like I said, you know, many people growing up here. When I grew up here, I didn't know about the history of this place. They didn't have these plaques up here. They turned, this whole mansion was turned into offices for, it was just offices, you know? I mean, they had like a little art center inside and stuff like that. They didn't even have a museum. So it wasn't, you know, it didn't catch my eye. This, you know, of course I didn't care about history at the time either, folks. And look at this glass, people. This is real, original glass. You can see the waves in the glass. So I'm just going to try to show you the inside here a bit of this mansion. It's actually, I only been in here a couple of times, like, oh my God, like, I don't know, 20 some years ago, maybe, is when I came in here. And they even have a dungeon. They have a, well, you know, I call it the dungeon, but it wasn't a dungeon, it was a basement, but it looked like a dungeon. It was really cool. And, but even if it was open, they wouldn't let me film anyway, so. But, so, like I said, I'm gonna walk around the whole mansion. You know, it had, you know, over 700 acres. So this place, the Calverts were, you know, they were, when I remember when I came here a long time ago, and the curator said, because that's when they start taking it seriously, back in the 80s, they said. And so the curator, look at this old tree, big old tree, some kind of oak tree. So the curator told us that the Calverts at the time were land rich. They weren't like these millionaires, like, I mean, of course they had this giant mansion, all, but they were land rich. So, and how they survived was by running their plantation. And I guess some of the plaque information I was reading there, they were British sympathizers during the British American Revolutionary War. So they weren't on our side necessarily, you know what I mean? So anyway, but that's it. And then also I have a really funny story to tell you about the Calvert cemetery, which is very small. I think there's only 2 above ground tombstones there, if I remember correctly. They don't even call it tombstones. I forgot what it's called, but yeah, I know my history is not good, and you know, and when I'm in a rush too, you know, my brain kind of freezes a little bit, so forgive me. But yeah, it's really kind of cool though. The inside, I remember, I've only, like I said, walked through there twice, and they had the old portraits, the old original paintings of the Calverts, you know, the original Calverts and everything. So yeah, so I mean, it's pretty big ground here still, but yeah, it's no longer 739 acres, I can guarantee that. Okay folks, stay tuned, because like I said, I'm going to go to the cemetery, and hopefully I can film there, so stay tuned. All right. Oh, and also subscribe if you would. Help my channel out, I'd appreciate it. I'm trying to do the best I can. Not the greatest, that's for sure, but definitely trying to do the best I can. Yeah, this place brings back some old memories. Like I said, when I was a teenager, we'd come out here sometimes in the middle of the night, hang out here and drink a couple beers or two, you know. So yeah, it's anyway, stay tuned folks. I'm gonna also, like I said, I'm gonna take pictures and everything, and so you can read at your leisure. Thank you for watching. Okay, so I decided I'm going to read this very quick for everybody. So it says, large estates such as Riverdale had a number of outbuildings. These support structures or dependencies were essential to the operation of a large property. Historians and archaeologists have documented that a kitchen, servants' quarters, wash house, water tower, smokehouse, privy, and a garden was formerly occupied the yard east this side of the mansion. This dependency is the last surviving outbuilding, this right here, from the Riverdale estate. Structural investigations indicate that it was likely built in the mid-19th century, probably during the occupancy of Charles Benedict Calvert. However, archaeological investigation of the dirt and clay floor revealed an earlier foundation, suggesting that there may have been a similar building on this site during the lifetimes of Rosalie and George Calvert. This structure, approximately 30 feet east of the main house, is a simple 2-story building with 2 entrances like the main house. It is constructed of brick and covered with stucco. A central chimney served a fireplace in each of the 2 side-by-side units, and a stair ladder provided access to the 2nd story. Over the years, this building had many different uses, and 1849 fire insurance policy refers to it as the servant's house of brick, while a later document suggests it was used as a kitchen. A listing in the 1860 census indicates that a family was occupying the structure at that time. With the restoration of the building, the south half right side of the structure has been interpreted as a working replica kitchen, and the north half, left side, will be used for a variety of exhibits. And here's some interesting pictures. Riverdale dependency over the years. Note the garden wall and bell tower with the dependency. And here's the mansion in the winter time, it looks like, down here. Then of course, this picture here shows that it was in disrepair. No door. You can see there's no door there. Windows are, looks like it busted out. So yeah, like I said, this was before my time. So yeah, but like I said, they didn't really start to take care of this place until late. So I'll read this. Well, this is a lot here. So in the summer of 1794, as French Republican troops approached Antwerp, Flemish aristocrat Henry Joseph Steer, who built this house, 1743, 1821, and his family fled to Philadelphia, taking with them their most valuable possessions, including the finest collection of old world masters' paintings ever to cross the Atlantic at the time. The Steer family moved to Annapolis in 1795. There, Rosalie, the Steers' younger daughter, 1778, 1821, met George Calvert, a delegate to the Baltimore Legislative and grandson of the 5th Lord Baltimore, the founding family of Maryland. Interesting. Okay. Calvert was a master of Mount Albion, a large plantation near Upper Marlboro. He and Rosalie were married in the summer of 1799, spent part of their honeymoon trip at Mount Vernon, and took up residence at Mount Albion, also now known as Goodwood. In 1800, Henry Steer bought farmland near the port of Bladensburg and set about building a plantation house. Henry Steer and his wife moved into the East Wing in 1802 and 1803. The Steer family, except for Rosalie, took advantage of the amnesty to return to Antwerp. The development of the plantation was left to Rosalie and George Calvert, who moved into the still unfinished house, by then called Riversdale, and completed its construction in 1807. They raised their children at Riversdale and spent the rest of their lives there. They are buried in the nearby Calvert Cemetery. That's where we're going, folks. So Rosalie's letters to her family, published in Mistress of Riverdale, offer an intimate picture of upper-class family life in the federal city in the early days of the Republic and are the basis of the present restoration of the mansion. The painting collection remained at Riverdale until 1816, when it was returned to Antwerp. Since then, the paintings have found their way into museums and private collections all over the world. In 1838, Riversdale passed to Rosalie and George Calvert's son, Charles Benedict Calvert. 1808, 1864, U.S. Congressman, progressive farmer, and principal founder of the Maryland Agricultural College, now the University of Maryland. Called He Hares, eventually sold Riversdale and some 450 acres in 1887 to a New York firm developing a planned railroad suburb called Riverdale Park. During the next 50 years, Riverdale had a series of private owners. In the late 1940s, retired U.S. Congressman Abraham Laffrey sold the house with its remaining grounds to the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, which used Riverdale as offices until restoration began in 1988. That's when I came in, folks, around in the 80s. Riverdale's was reopened to the public in 1993 and was designated National Historic Landmark in 1997. Okay, so like I said, they turned it into Park and Planning Commission offices, and that was it. So, okay, folks, so now we're going to head, there's one more plaque up here. I'm going to turn off the video and then turn it back on to read it for you, so we can definitely get some more history lessons. Thank you. So what is neat, this one is most pretty cool. Star Spangled Banner National Historic Trail. We have been in a state of continual alarm, 1814. Rosalie Steer Calvert. Here's the battlegrounds of Bladensburg. From her home on August 24th, 1814, Rosalie Steer Calvert saw rocket fire as the Battle of Bladensburg raged 2 miles away. Soon she learned of the British victory and known from the reddening skies over Washington that the enemy had reached the city. Her husband George and their field hands helped to bury the dead after battle. Mr. Calvert visited injured British officers recuperating in Bladensburg. High anxiety. The War of 1812 distressed plantation owners. The British blockade prevented them from selling tobacco abroad. Enemy raiders devastated plantations and tobacco storehouses.
and lured away enslaved workers. The Calverts feared Riverdale might be at risk, but the British eyed bigger targets. Miss Calvert later wrote, "We hardly suffered at all."
Okay, so it doesn't look like they were sympathizers. Basically, I think they were just worried, and they didn't want to. Maybe they try to kiss a little butt or something. That's why they visited the British officers. So maybe they were just trying to make some friends to save their plantation, save their livelihood. Okay, now we're going to head over to the mansion if we can get there. Stay tuned. So we're at the Calvert Memorial Park. This is Kenilworth Avenue right there in Riverdale, and this is the Calvert Cemetery. Okay, so now I have been here when I was a kid, long time ago, and again, this is big history here, folks. I don't think anybody comes and visit this anyway. So Calvert Family Cemetery, burial place of George and Rosalie Calvert, 4 infant children, and Charles Benedict Calvert and his infant son. The Calvert family, descendants of the Lords Baltimore, lived at Riverdale from 1803 to 1887. Charles Benedict Calvert was a major figure in the establishment of the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Maryland Agricultural College, University of Maryland. So this is it, folks. Of course, it's locked up. Again, I don't think anybody comes here. So that is George Calvert, born August 23rd, 1808, died May 12th, 1864. Sorry for the camera work because I'm reading at the same time. And that is Calvert, Jules Van Harvey. Looks like 1840. And here is just the initials of CBC. And those little tombstones over there, those are the children. So let me walk around. So it says, again, let's read this not the whole thing. Let's, 4 infant children, George and Rosalie Calvert, plus 4 infant children. Because back in those days, they had diseases would go through and just wipe out whole families and all their children at once. I mean, I've seen this at all the cemeteries I go to. You see sometimes entire families wiped out, with the headstones in there. Okay, so yeah, that's what would happen in those days, folks. So yeah, and it's a sad thing, but that was part of their lives back then. With that, just disease. Just disease comes and then it wipes out the whole children. So also, when I was in the cemetery, in the mansion, a long time ago, I was only in there 2 times in my life. Wasn't into history or anything back in the days, folks. So so forgive me. But yeah, so they had a room, and I remember the curator told me that this room, they showed us one room, and they suspect it was called the sick room, where if anybody got sick, they put them in that room, and hopefully they got better, but apparently a lot of them didn't. So there's 4 little headstones, and they died very young. They didn't say the ages. And then of course the 2 parents there, and then of course Charles Calvert, and then the other 2. I'm not really sure who the other 2 are. But that's it, folks. This is it. This is the Calvert Cemetery. And and I wanted to explain to you, if you come up here, that's Kenilworth Avenue there, okay? And if you go to the left there, that can take you to University of Maryland. So this was 739 acres originally, and so this was part of their plantation here. And they probably just said, okay, on this hill, because it's a hill here, that they're going to have the family cemetery, and that's what they did. And there was nothing here, folks. It was a plantation. That was it, Probably wood. It had, lots of woods. Of course, Kenilworth Avenue wasn't here. Maybe Kenilworth Avenue back in the day was just a dirt road or something, But so just to let you know, if you come here, that this little town here is kind of a hip place. It looks like a lot of college students are coming here. There's enough parking here, and there is. It's just really cool. So I haven't been here since I was a teenager. Well, the last time I came here, I was probably in my 20s when I went into the mansion for full tour because I was like, okay, I'm here. We'll do the whole tour. And I did it, and I barely remember any of it. So this is the Calvert Memorial Park. So if you come here, folks, there's restaurants here. There's cafes, and this is a hip place. It's you know, for of course younger generation than me now, but yeah, this brings back a lot of memories here, folks. So yeah, if you decide to come out to the Calvert Mansion, do the tour, come here. Nobody I ever grew up with even knew that this cemetery was here. I found it by accident. I was walking through here with a couple of friends, and yeah, that's how I found the place. And I've always remembered it. I didn't remember it was like, I thought it was more up on the hill over here next to the highway. I didn't remember it being off the highway, just, you know, about not even a full block. But yeah, that's so a lot of memories are flooding back me being here. But that's it, folks. So if you get a chance, come out and spend some little bit of time and get some real history, and then also go to the Bladensburg battlefield. It's just, I've been there a long time ago. The Bladensburg battlefield is just a field, and there's, I mean, they probably, I'm sure by now they probably put some placards up with some information. That's it, folks. Signing off. Please subscribe, hit the subscribe button if you would, and keep watching. I'm going to keep trying to add more videos. Thank you very much. Until next time. Okay, guys, welcome back. Graveyard Tours. I had to show you this. This is a Colmar Manor, which really is Bladensburg to me. On this site, now part of Anacostia River Park, more than 50 duels were fought during the first half of the 19th century. Here on what became known as the Dark and Bloody Grounds, gentlemen of Washington settled their political and personal differences. One of the most famous disputes was that between Commodore Stephen Decatur and James Barron, which was settled here on March 22nd, 1820. Commodore Decatur, who had gained fame as a conqueror of the Barbary pirates, was fatally wounded by his antagonist, although Congress passed an anti-dueling law in 1839. Duels continue here until just before the Civil War. Like I said, folks, and of course we can't go to the dueling grounds because it's closed, and it looks like it's been closed for a long time. Well, the bridge anyway, but the dueling grounds is actually down here in this park area. And yeah, there's trash hanging in the trees and everything. It's not a great area. Bladensburg has never really been known to be a very great area. When I grew up in Riverdale, not far from here, it's never been known, but that's it down there. There's, like I said, there's a lot of history that people don't pay attention to, don't care anymore. The Battle of Bladensburg starts, okay, so here, also the road to the Capitol, the War of 1812, the Bladensburg fort is not far from here, but it's no longer a fort, it's just a park. That's all it is. And I can show it to you, but it literally is just a park. I mean, nothing, okay? So this is, I'm gonna take pictures so you guys can look at this at your leisure. The Battle of Bladensburg dueling grounds. Throughout much of the 19th century, the Bladensburg dueling grounds were well known to settle differences. Okay, so we already read all that. Well, let's see. Okay, so the site was a secluded location close to taverns and fell outside of Washington, D.C. boundaries where dueling was prohibited. The first notable fight was between two members of Congress. More than 26 recorded and 50 reported duels were fought in the 1800s. Okay, so we already read the rest of that, but I'll go take pictures. During the battle, Commodore, okay, so this is also during the battle, Commodore Joseph Barney took a position on the hills above the dueling grounds, providing a tactical advantage. He held his cannons until the British were within a few hundred yards and fired the massive 18-pounder, clearing the road several times. The British retreated to the safety of the natural ravine. Okay, so again, so not only was the dueling grounds, there's also it saw battle during the 1812 British invasion. So folks, like I said, there is so much history out here that people just don't pay attention to anymore. And I grew up not far from here, and I never paid attention, never cared, never came down here really. And I didn't even know this place existed until I was an adult. So this is how much history. They, you know, you grew up in a town like this, you would think that they would teach you these things in school. That, hey, did you all know that right down the street that they had the dueling grounds? No, they didn't teach us any of this stuff in school. So that's it. That's the dueling grounds, and they still cut the grass down here, but I don't even know if you can access it. Let me go around and I'll get back on here. Stay tuned. Okay, so here it is. This is the dueling grounds, and let me show you and of course the Battle of Bladensburg was here. Described as having a gentle face with dark black eyes, Joshua Barney was a swashbuckling life. He has taken prisoner 3 times, escaping prison once in the Revolutionary War. As a dashing naval officer, he met Marie Antoinette, whereupon she offered her cheek instead of her hand. Legend holds that the song Barney, Leave the Girls Alone was written about him. Like I said, there's so much history here, folks, that nobody really pays attention to out here, trust me. And it says, U.S. Marines under Captain Samuel Miller joined Commodore Joshua Barney's flotilla at the 3rd line near here. Colonel William Thornton of the British Light Brigade led a charge and ran directly into the cannons under the Barney's command. A dangerous crossfire ensued between Barney's forces backed with the smaller guns of Major Peters, Georgetown Artillery, and the British forces. An American quartermaster under Miller recalled whole companies were cut down to a man as they approached our lines. Joshua Barney was an American war hero before making a stand at the Battle of Bladensburg. A native of Maryland, he was the youngest commissioned officer in the U.S. Navy during the Revolutionary War. In the War of 1812, he was in charge of the Chesapeake Flotilla, a mosquito fleet of boats intended to annoy the British. The flotilla he designed consisted of low draft barges equipped with large guns, was ideally suited for the shallow waters of the Chesapeake Bay. Barney's flotilla was a diverse group, including escaped slaves like Charles Ball. They were also some of the toughest and best trained troops of the field of Battle of Bladensburg. So amazing, folks, because a lot of my grave sites in, not a lot, but a few of the grave sites in Pennsylvania has a lot of Revolutionary War and a Battle of 1812 veterans buried out there. So this is, after penetrating 2 lines of defense, the British rushed towards the 3rd line. Commodore Barney and Captain Samuel Miller with 400 flotilla men, 114 U.S. Marines, and some militia made a stand with 5 big guns across Bladensburg Road, not far from Bladensburg Road, literally right over there, right down there. Both Barney and Miller were wounded in the battle, outflanked and out of ammunition. Barney offered a retreat. That night, August 24th, 1814, the British burned federal buildings in Washington, D.C. Of course, due to respect from the Patuxent River, Joshua Barney and his flotilla crew marched to Washington. They helped form the 3rd line of Bladensburg. After the battle, Barney's opponents, Rear Admiral Cockburn and Major General Ross, praised his action, paroled him, and provided medical care. The Admiral said Barney and his men gave us the only fighting we have had. Wow. So, I mean, like I said, folks, this map is on the other ones. I'll take pictures. But to start off, okay, so this was the dueling ground since, like, I think it was 1820 it started out. I'm sure this little river here wasn't here. This drainage area wasn't here. And this was just a field out here. This is the dueling ground right here. And like I said, if you come out here, be careful. Come out here in the daytime. Don't come out at night because it's not a good neighborhood. So just be careful. I mean, it is and it isn't. So you don't come out. There's also a giant park that is literally right through this gates here. A huge park. Okay, so that's it, guys. But this, guys and gals, this is the dueling ground. I mean, you know, history. I would love to come out with a metal detector, but I'm sure I wouldn't be able to. What is this? Okay, this gazebo is dedicated to the dueling grounds in honor of its rich and extensive history. Okay, so yeah, so they built but this is it, folks. We had Congress people come out here and duel and fought, and some of them died. You know, the famous one, you know, one famous story. This is amazing. There's so much history here that nobody pays attention to. This is incredible if you think about it. Okay, folks, I'm going to continue adding a little bits here and there to this, and hope you keep watching. And I hope you sign up and leave a like if you would. All right, thank you. Okay, welcome back, Graveyard Tours. I'm in Bladensburg, Maryland, near Riverdale, Maryland, near where I grew up, actually. So the reason why I'm here is because it all comes together with the Calvert Memorial House, Calvert Mansion, and stuff like that, and the graveyard. So let's read this real quick. The War of 1812 raged on land and sea, touching every border of the young nation. On August 24th, 1814, after 2 years at war, the Americans faced the British here in Bladensburg. While the American militia were unable to hold back the British attack at the Anacostia River, Marines and sailors, including U.S. Chesapeake flotilla men, set up a defense block in the road outside present-day Fort Lincoln Cemetery. After hours of intense fighting, American forces were overrun and British troops marched to invade the nation's capital. So this is a picture in the summer of 1814. The landscape of the battlefield was very different than it is today. Once outside the village of Bladensburg, a modern cottage city in Colmore Manor, buildings gave way to open countryside, gently rolling terrain with farm fields, orchards, and forests. A lot of people, even I grew up here in Riverdale, not far from here. I didn't know about this. It was never taught in school. We know it's called the Peace Cross, and I didn't even know what it meant, what it was for. Nobody ever told me. And of course, you know, I never found out because I wasn't in history then. But this is the Peace Cross. This is what I used to drive by all the time and never stopped to pay attention to what it meant. So it's in honor of the War of 1812. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's too much, but you can read it, pause the video and read it. So the large monument here basically is for all wars, but I'm going to show you something very interesting in 1 minute here. So bear with me, folks. British advance. This house survives from the days when Bladensburg was a busy port town where George Washington stopped as he traveled the Old Post Road. On August 24th, 1814, the British established an artillery position nearby and fired cannon and rockets at the American defenders. Local tradition claims that walls of the house were scarred by cannonballs, but no evidence exists. 3 weeks before Francis Scott Key immortalized the rocket's red glare over Fort McHenry in the Star-Spangled Banner, British rockets screamed over the battlefield here. Congreve rockets reached targets a mile or more away. British artillery also included 1 6-pounder and 2 3-pounders named for the weight of their cannonballs. Now, folks, I didn't find out until I was like a teenager about this house right here. This house was here during the War of 1812, and the British fired on it. And this is where George Washington would stay. Now, I remember years ago, when I was a teenager, workers were in the house and they found papers signed by George Washington buried in the plaster. So let's read this real quick. George Washington House, circa 1752. The George Washington House, often referred to as the Indian Queen Tavern, was built by tavern keeper Jacob Wirt prior to the Revolution. When Bladensburg was a thriving port town, this building was rented out to Cunningham and Company, a Scottish mercantile firm which traded in tobacco. The building later served as a tavern and stagecoach stop for the weary travelers during their journeys along the Old Post Road. A major route linking the north and south. From 1774 to 1783, it was run by innkeepers turned lawyer and balloonist Peter Carnes. In 1784, Carnes made the first authenticated unmanned and manned balloon ascents in America. We're talking hot air balloons, folks. In 1792, this building was sold to further the legal education of William Wirt. I went to school, junior high school, at William Wirt Junior High School. Okay, I don't know if it's even called that anymore. Jacob's youngest son, William, born here in 1772, later became a prominent lawyer, author, and noted United States Attorney General, 1817 to 1829, and a candidate for president in 1832. In 1894, populist reformer Jacob Coxey and his army of unemployed protesters camped here during their march on Washington, D.C., seeking federal aid. So, folks, I mean, this is incredible, you know. So we're going to walk around. This is the old house where George Washington stayed, and also where it got bombed by the British and attacked. And luckily it survived. They said, the rumor was that it got hit by cannon fire, but they were never able to prove it. But it was proved that George Washington stayed here, and it was proved that they found documents buried behind the plaster wall with his signature back when I was a teenager. So we're talking probably the 70s or 80s, I think. So obviously they're doing repair work here, but this is the house. This is it. (4302) Baltimore Avenue, National Register of Historic Places. And of course it was called at one time the site of the Indian Queen Tavern. And now I think it's just county offices. So, a lot of rush hour traffic right now, but this is your typical, I think they call it a colonial style home. I'm gonna run across the street so we can get a better view. I don't want to get run over. These people are crazy out here. So anyway, here's the front of it. And like I said, you know, we don't have, I was never taught any of this stuff in school. Of course, I went to public school, not saying much about it, but I went to public school. So let me cross back over. Now we're going to go to where the Battle of Bladensburg really happened. So stay tuned. I'm putting all these little short videos together. Let's walk around this a little bit more, though. I want to. I'm actually very interested in this. So let's see if we can read any more placards. See if I can. Oh, look at this. This is old. That's like an old anchor. That's what they used to make anchors out of. Yeah, the river, Potomac River, is right around the corner from here. So now this is a part of the Anacostia Watershed Society. Okay, that makes sense. Which is Peace Cross is back there. I'll show you that too. But wait till we're done here. So this is it, folks. This is it. Very cool. This is a famous Indian Tavern Inn where George Washington would stay. I mean, like I said, it's a lot of really cool history. So this all comes together with the Calvert mansion. The Calverts who lived there, they saw the battlefield from their property, you know. So this all comes together, and we saw their graveyard. So now we're going to go to where the actual battlefield happened. Stay tuned. Okay, so here we are, Battle of Bladensburg. Just after the crossing of the bridge at the entrance of the town, the view is very inviting. Soft masses of smoke like willows leaned over the water, and the stream curves in graceful sweeps around wooden points as if tentatively feeling its way to the land ferry. Standing here, where the 120-foot long wooden bridge would have carried the road between Bladensburg and Washington, D.C., a traveler in 1814 would have experienced all manner of travel in and out of the popular community. Established in the 1740s as a 40-foot deep port with tobacco way stations, Bladensburg had 35 households, 7 merchants, 6 taverns, and 2 doctors by 1776. Roads, there was just an accident. There was just an accident that interrupted me. There was a rear end collision here. Roads converged from Annapolis, Baltimore, Washington, and Upper Marlboro by 1814. Bladensburg Port was in decline due to silting, but it had become popular for day trippers, especially from Georgetown, to experience the Spa Springs. By the mid-19th century, something closed. Today, the river continues to silt and remains very shallow. Across the Anacostia River and to the left is the George Washington House, which we already saw, an early store attached to the former Indian Queen Tavern. Further along Annapolis Road are the Hillary McGuire House, a market master
building in Bostwick, built by Christopher Lloyds, a wealthy merchant rope maker and shipbuilder. Bostwick was also home to the first Secretary of the Navy, Benjamin Stoddard. These historic buildings are the remainders of the historic crossings of Bladensburg. Here is the now port, that famous port that was very popular back in the day and very useful. And you can see how shallow it is because the silt would just run in here. And this was it, folks. I remember growing up, none of this stuff was here, okay? This bike trail, nothing was here before. It was just a walking path, a dirt walking path when I was growing up nearby. I actually rode my bike here before it was a bike path. So this is it, folks. And I remember coming down here when I was a child, when I was a kid. There was the Bladensburg port. Part of the old Bladensburg port is right down there. Okay, no boats come in and out of it. Maybe canoes, maybe, if they're able. Okay, so I mean, you know, after a while, it's too much silt came in, and of course they couldn't do anything. They couldn't bring the big ships in anymore. And I'm going to show you from here, folks. There is the Peace Cross. Okay, so there's the Peace Cross. To the left over here, you can't see it from here. Here's the bridge. Back there is the George Washington House. Okay, so the Battle of Bladensburg happened all around here. Of course, the British wanted to take over the port, which they attempted to. Now, if you go backwards, back here, away, down here, where that traffic light is, I don't know if you can see it, that is Lincoln Cemetery. That's where the British set up their main battleground, their cannons and everything. And they would fire from way back there all the way over here towards the tavern, the port, and of course the U.S. militia was all around here fighting the British, which they lost. They couldn't hold. And then from the British from here stormed into D.C. and they burnt the White House, as history tells. So this is where the War of 1812, the big battles were happening right here in this little town called Bladensburg. Amazing, folks, amazing. So this is it, folks. This is it. And this is going to be the end of the tour from the Calvert Mansion videos. It all combines together. Calvert House, Calvert Mansion, the graveyard, George Washington House, Peace Cross, the Battle of Bladensburg, and also the dueling grounds. That's a separate video, but the dueling grounds. Oh, the dueling grounds, I'm sorry to say, forgot. So the dueling grounds is literally down there right next to the Lincoln Cemetery. I'll do a video later, another video of the Lincoln Cemetery, but the dueling grounds is down there. So that happened way before the British invaded and everything. So that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed these short documentary, and please hit this subscribe button or like button if you like what I'm doing. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Till the next time.